right. Thank you very much for staying with Facing the Nation. Before I chat with today's next guest, we had a disconnection. The information that we were taking during at the beginning of the previous break. Sir, I'm asking that you call 225-7853. Anytime after 2 p.m., that's about in the next hour or so, 225-7853, and I will take the information to you and pass it on to Minister Felix. And that goes also for the other persons who are having some issues in terms of getting out there and vote. We will see how best we can assist you with the next few hours, because remember, the polls close at 6. But now let's talk about coastal village economies, and I'm using that term, coastal village economy, is because that is what ACTA, that is the African Culture and Development Association. Most of us by now we're familiar with ACTA. It's become like a household name for us. ACTA is on a mission to ensure the development of coastal village economies. And with me, none other to discuss that, who better than to have Miss Allison Butters. She is Allison Grant Butters. Allison Butters Grant. Sometimes we get mixed up with the two names. Allison Butters Grant, who is the chairperson of the fishing committee. She's on the program here to discuss that, not only fishing, but developing the economies in general. Thank you very much for being here, Miss Grant, Mrs. Grant.
And thank you for having me too. And good afternoon, Guyana.
All right, it's a pleasure to have you. And our conversation it comes at an appropriate time because we're talking about developing village economies, and it comes at a time when we're at the polls, we're voting for local government elections, and of course the president and the government of Guyana continues to preach the importance of developing communities and villages. So I think our conversation indeed comes at an opportune time. First off, let's talk about this mission to develop these economies.
Okay, ACTA has started the initiative in identifying various levels of interest where the economies of these villages can be made progressive.
Okay.
So what we are, in my role,
Yes.
since that I am a woman in fisheries,
Yes.
we are looking at increasing of ownership in these villages, reviving the fishing villages that used to be fishing villages. And we started in Victoria. We met with the people in Victoria 2 Saturdays ago and speaking to them as to the levels of where they can address in reviving the village economy as a fishing village. We chose Victoria first because my company will be setting up another facility in Victoria. And the historic nature, or the history, I must say, of Victoria, we thought that would have been the pristine place to actually start our initiative.
For fishing.
For starting talking about village economies, especially in fishing along the coastline. Victoria would not be the only place that we would go to, but we started there. As you know, Victoria was bought by slaves.
Yes.
And it should be an inspiration and motivation to our people to want better and want more. With it being on the coast and people in there that used to be fishermen, for one reason or the other, they were suppressed in continuing their trade.
Okay.
So we've had people who came out that Saturday telling us of their interest. We have said to them, it's not only for people with a boat, there are opportunities that you can expand on in the fishing industry. You own a boat, you need nets. You need fuel. You need people that mend the seine. And each one of those are revenue generators. I also want to implore women, more women, to enter the industry.
I'm happy that you talked about wanting more women. And I'm going to go a bit further in terms of the youth, in terms of what sort of response you've been getting. And the reason I'm asking is that because we're in an era where the glamorous jobs or the glamorous professions, the doctors, the lawyers, the journalists, the television anchors, even the politicians, we seem to be moving away from wanting to be a farmer or get involved in fishing. What sort of response or interest have you been getting from the youth in, especially Victoria, in those villages?
They're interested. They just need to be motivated, like groups. And I must say thank you to ACTA for beginning this initiative, because somebody has got to run with it.
Yes.
And if somebody doesn't do it, not all of us were fortunate enough or privileged enough to have the same motivation to do what we do. Now, you mentioned doctors and lawyers and, professionals not wanting to go into farming. And if I may say, I'm a remigrant from the U.S.
Yes.
And I've worked in corporate America for 29 years.
Oh, wow.
And I've worked in diversified roles in corporate America. But I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. I left Guyana in 1986, but I never left Guyana.
Oh, understood.
And I grew up in the fishing industry. First of all, I didn't want to leave. My parents insisted that I had higher education, and I like to say they deported me out of Guyana to go to school.
It paid off.
Yes, it sure did. And my mom and dad would send newspapers of the week through Solomon Shipping every week, so that, because back in 86, 87, there was no internet for you to read the Chronicle or the Stabroek News or any one of those. So we looked forward at the end of the week to go down to Solomon Shipping on Austrian Avenue just to collect newspapers. And we would spend,
just read and
we
see
would
what's
spend our
going on
time
back
just
home.
going through the news to see what's happening in Guyana, except for what you hear. So I've always wanted to come back home. So, of course, I had to think what I was going to do when I came back home.
Okay.
And my interest was always in the industry. It was just unfortunate that my parents went out of business in 92 for more than one reason. And that in itself motivates me to want to continue in the fishing industry, just to not only be in it, but to ensure the sustainable quality of fish that is being delivered to the marketplace.
Before we talk a bit about your company, how easy or how difficult has the task been? Because again, in the last 2 decades or so, we have sort of moved away from developing our communities and developing our villages. Everybody gravitated to one area. We're going after where there's the, some people say the heavy exhaust and the smoke, and where there are more people. How easy or how difficult has your task been thus far in terms of working along with ACTA to get basically the economies in these villages up and running?
Well, first of all, we have been doing a gap analysis as to the needs of what the people are looking for. So before we can actually start that process, we need to know the needs. Now, the persons that came out did have an interest, but the biggest challenge for them would be finance.
As with everything, yeah.
We have a team with a chair like myself who is looking at banking and finance. But what we have said to the persons who attended in Victoria, we will be attracting the banks. Like, for instance, when I started my business, Citizens Bank, I can attest, was a major driving force behind my business. I'm also a customer at Republic Bank. So the banks are very open to help people that are seeking these types of help, financial help for growing industries, especially when it's viable. Because I can tell you there's a big demand for fish from Guyana all over the world. I get calls as far away as Poland looking for fish. Saudi Arabia. We currently export a lot of fish out to the Caribbean. Bangameri, it's a big seller. And it's in
all
big
of this,
demand.
all of this is your business. And on that note, let's talk about your business and so on, how it has developed and how it has evolved, and where do you plan to take it, and Guyanese as customers and even supporters, Guyanese expected role and so.
I think too big sometimes.
No, I don't think there is ever
uh,
such thing as
I
thinking too
know,
big.
I know. But where I would like to see, and I wouldn't even say my business, but the fishing industry out of Guyana.
Yes.
After living in the U.S. for 29 years and seeing the product that would have graced the shelves from Guyana in the United States, I would like to see our products in mainstream supermarkets and not just in Guyanese stores. We must be able to have a standard that we can enter the Whole Foods of the world, the Stop and Shops, the ShopRites, and they all require a standard in order for us to be able to enter those markets. If not, we'll continue not selling at a competitive level to ourselves.
What sort of support is required or needed so that we can be at or set that particular standard that is expected?
Well, one, we have to understand packaging. The other thing, I can speak for the United States. There are new laws, the FSMA laws, the Food and Drug brought out some new regulations that we have to follow in order for our products. Some of the supermarkets require insurance. If somebody gets sick from the product, somebody is responsible and held accountable. So, there's a whole different level to the value, the supply, and all the chains that are involved.
Okay.
But of course, we have to research that, and somebody's got. Now, I can do that for my company. The other companies that send to Europe, send to other places, we have BV, we have Noble Seafoods, and they've been in the business for a very long time, and they also adhere to very high standards.
Okay.
But for the smaller or the medium-scaled businesses, there's a lot of need to be educated in that area. But coming back to our village economies, and that's what ACTA is actually taking to these villages, educating them on the different areas of skills needed. Like in the fishing industry.
It's just teaching.
Right? In the fishing industry, we either fillet the fish. Before you fillet the fish, of course, you have to scale the fish. But it's just not filleting, scaling, and packing the fish. You have to learn what are the good manufacturing processes that are needed before you even touch the fish. And it even goes all the way back down to the fishermen, how they handle the fish before the fish is actually delivered to me and before it goes to the regular consumer.
So it's a sort of maybe large-scale training that may
yes,
to be
and
done eventually.
In my company, I actually have a certificate from Cornell University on good manufacturing processes. And we have trained our girls and guys that work for us as to how to follow from the delivery of the fish to the packaging of the fish, so that we can avoid any form of cross-contamination. And that's very important when you want to target our overseas markets. So going into Victoria is just not getting people to come to work, but you're teaching them a skill, teaching them a trade, teaching them, and not only for my business, if they decide they wanted to go somewhere else, they would have the skill set. So we're even thinking along the lines of some form of certification for people who would have gone through that program before even starting to work in our facilities.
Are you getting support, expecting or even requesting some sort of report from the government, support actually from the government of Guyana, and especially as it regards to all the things that need to be put in place to ensure that we're at a high standard?
Well, as we put our documentation together in regarding our village economies, I can see us at some point having a conversation or a presentation to our government to see what policies that we can add or what policies could be amended in order for adherence to support the village economies.
Okay.
Because there have to be some form of motivation to the people. And like I like to say, governments are here to do policies. You know, they're to ensure that we live in a safe and fair and free environment. But we, the people, have got to help the government make their jobs easier. Like ACTA is doing. We're going out there to the village and say, what do you need? What didn't you have? What can we bring to you in order that you can get up and make a decent living or a better living for yourself and your family? And then we can say to the government if there's something that needs to be changed or added or we need the support, and it's a viable need, then the government is there to, you know, support us. But we cannot expect the government to go into the village and at the same time,
Do
like the Minister of
everything,
Security, you know, the minister who was here, Minister of Security,
Citizenship.
The Minister of Citizenship has his job to do to ensure that his area is done. Minister of Finance has to ensure that there's enough money. And, you know, they all have their different roles.
Exactly, we all have to play
But
our
we,
part.
as a people here in Guyana, we cannot sit and wait for government to give us a handout. We have to get up and
Agreed.
work. And the other thing that I want to point out, all of us were not fortunate to be able to have a university education, a Guyana School of Agriculture education, or any higher form of learning.
Yes.
So we need to come back into these villages and give back and show the people that are living there that, of course, we're not going in there with the expectancy that we're going to teach them to become a doctor. But we're going to teach them how they can use the resources in their villages to start the economy rolling. I saw this week's newspaper where there's an ad from one of the agencies that are saying to the importers of food, and there are all these listing of regulations that are going to be needed before people bring imported products into the country. And I thought it was a great initiative. But what the motivation should be is for us to go out there and cultivate the same products that are being imported into the country. We have canned corn. We used to grow corn. We have resources. We have land. We can grow potatoes. We have land that we can grow broccoli. We have land that we can grow beets. We have land that we can grow carrots. Why aren't we growing it? We have land. What we can do is bring in the infrastructure that is being used in the areas of growing fish in Latin America, and we bring those technicians in with the knowledge in order to work with us to make our aquaculture a viable industry. We cannot just start growing fish because we hear fish is being sold in China or fish is being sold
jump on
it. It has to be structured. We have to get the technical know-how in order to make these industry viable so that we can compete in the international market space. We don't want to have a cost to grow something for $10 and China is selling it for $2. We can't compete. Who's going to buy it?
Exactly.
And that is the issue that we continue to have because we have to have the technical skills in order to enter the international market. And there's space for our product.
Yeah, there always is space. Every time I have someone who come on this program to talk about the economy, about business, growing these areas, you know, there is always a sentiment that Guyana has the potential to do great things when it comes to building the economy, developing the economy, and so on. Before I have to begin to wrap up my very wonderful and enlightening conversation with you today, what's next for this project, this venture, in terms of restoring or reviving these village economies?
Well, we will be going back to the villages. We went to Victoria. Now we're looking at Hope, we're looking at Belfield, we're looking at all the villages along the coastline. And we will be doing a public announcement as to the date and place and time as to where we will be going next. And we expect to have a big turnout of people coming. So we're not only going to Victoria for the Victorians.
Okay.
We're not going to Hope for the people from Hope. We want everybody to come. Tell us what the needs are in your fishing village, because we have a lot of fisher folks along the coastline. I had a gentleman in my office this morning who have 3 boats. And after I was telling him what the intention is, he said, well, Miss Allison, I could wind up with but 10 boats. I said, yes, there's not only a market just for fish, the waste of the fish, because the facility that I'm putting up, there would be tolerance for no waste. It would be a zero waste facility. We are also looking at energy generation. If we'll be using solar or waste energy, we're looking at what is the most viable solution for us to save on energy. We're going to be talking to GPL as to how, if we use XYZ to generate energy, how we can sell it back to the grid, or how we can provide energy for our brothers and sisters on the East Coast. At the same time, it's another form of revenue for us. So when you look at the whole village economy scale of things, it's just not about fish. Fish is my industry. But there's a whole host of other revenue generators that can be done. At the event, we had a young lady who was from Guyana School of Agriculture who has an interest in coming back to the village to get the people, the youths involved in teaching them what she has learned at GSA into the village. And we implore people who about fisheries, about agriculture, whatever your skill set is,
just come
to the forum and let us know what you can give and what your needs are.
Perfect. And it sounds like a really comprehensive and holistic plan. And of course, we'll certainly be watching and calling. And I will call you for updates and so on. Unfortunately, this is where I have to end our conversation for today. I thank you so very much for coming to Facing the Nation.
And if anyone wants to reach out to me, my direct number is 672-2431. And you can call me at any time.
Okay.
It's not a problem. I'm off at 6:30, and my day ends until I'm burnt out, and I'm off to sleep.
That means you're being kept busy, which is not such a bad thing. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being here.
Okay, thank you.
All right, viewers, this is Facing the Nation. We'll take a quick break. On the other side of the break, it will be time for me to wrap up with you today. Stay tuned. And it's just about time for me to leave you this week from Facing the Nation. Of course, as usual, the housekeeping matters before we go. I think Miss Allison Butters Grant forgot to mention and to thank a few people. So the persons from the fisheries team who are tuned in, I say thank you to you on her behalf. She didn't forget you, okay? It's just that I rushed her off a bit, of course, because we are pressed for time. So thank you so very much to Allison Butters Grant for coming on Facing the Nation today and talking about village economies, especially as it relates to fishing and fisheries and so on. As you know, developing communities, villages, and so on is very, very important to the President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, His Excellency Brigadier David Granger, and of course, by extension, that is also very important to the government of Guyana and the people of Guyana. And that is one of the reasons why in less than a year after going into office, the APNU AFC has managed to pull off the first local government elections for Guyana in the last 2 decades or so. So it really is a good thing. Again, I'm going to stress this is the opportunity. Go out, get out there and vote. You still have some more time left. You have just over about 4 hours left. The polls opened at 6 this morning and they will close at 6 p.m. this evening. So go out and vote. I have already done it, and I always tell people that it makes your finger look a bit ugly. But every time I look at this finger, and I don't even try to take the ink off with bleach, because every time I look at this finger, I feel a sense of pride and a sense of patriotism, because it is there knowing that, I'm alive and well, and I'm able to exercise my franchise, and I'm able to be a patriot, and I'm able to vote, to choose the direction in which I want my country to go in. So every time I look at this finger, I swell up with pride. So I'll be walking around like this until it automatically fades by itself. I'm not going to use bleach, and I'm going to try not to do any chores that involves bleach so that it can come off. So you can play. We keep saying you can play a part in deciding how your country is run, and in this case, how your community is run and how your communities are developed. So this is the last opportunity for now for you to vote for local government elections. So go out there, get out there and vote. You know where my allegiance lies. You know where I will encourage you to vote. So go out and vote. But at the end of the day, it is your constitutional right to vote and to choose who you want to run your communities or your countries. Time is running out. Quickly before I go, remember next Friday is Good Friday. Next week is Holy Week, so there will be no Facing the Nation program on Good Friday. So the next time you see me on Facing the Nation is going to be on the 1st of April. Friday the 1st of April, that will be April Fool's Day, but there will be no fooling on this program. This is a very serious program. So in the meantime, I want you to be very careful, be safe, have a wonderful Easter. Look out for the little ones. Remember to always teach them the rules about flying kites, only in open spaces, not near electric wires and poles and so on, where they can get themselves into trouble and give GPL so much work to do. So ensure that you remind them of all the rules. So in the meantime, until you see me again, have a wonderful Easter, Guyana. Have a blessed Holy Week. Next week, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and again, go out and vote. Today is Friday the 18th of March, and it's local government elections. This has been Facing the Nation. I'm Malika Ramsey. Goodbye.